Viewer discretion is advised.
If you look after yourself, your time on this planet is longer. You give yourself like another good 10, 15 years if you look after yourself. If you don't look after yourself, time goes faster.
Mandate.
Welcome to Mandate, where we navigate fresh perspectives and nothing is off the table. Tonight's guest is originally from the friendly islands of the Kingdom of Tonga, but now resides for many years in Tamaki Makaurau, but more so in Papakura. He's an amazing talent, he's an actor, he's also a former TV presenter, and also he's a real estate agent. And so he's in the real estate industry at the moment as well, but also he also sells fencing up and down throughout the North Island. And also the man is also a fitness freak. He's one of the lead trainers in at Fit60, and also the man has his own podcast, and it's called Garage Drinks with Mike. Please put your hands together for the highly motivated and extremely talented Tokuua, Michael Koloi.
I've never had an intro like that before. Malo pito.
Malo pito, mate, malo lava toku. If anything, just before we kind of dive more so in the conversation, Mike, because you're a busy man, you're a very busy individual, and so I'm wondering, because I didn't mention your family, your 5 kids, your wife, your beautiful wife, and your lovely kids. How do you juggle all of that, bro? Because you're busy.
Yeah, I suppose I am a little bit busy. a little bit busy. I suppose the number one thing about it is my wife. Like it basically sort of starts and ends with, having an amazing wife, an amazing partner in life that I can lean on and that helps me balance and counter all this stuff. I think I'm probably naturally quite a busy-minded person, and there's a lot of different things that I probably pursue, and they're quite different. But I've always had that sort of self-confidence to try new things, and back myself. I don't know where that comes from, but my wife's always been behind me as well. But a big part of me, because if you list off like the jobs and stuff, it sounds like I'm flat out and stuff. But I think probably before anything, I'm a husband and a father, and those are the probably the most 2 important roles, because without those 2 things, everything else falls away. Everything else doesn't really mean anything. The other jobs, I can't juggle anything without being a husband and a father. So so it all starts from home, and then it sort of goes into my drive it's not so much that I wanted to do so many different things. It's just that I really wanted my family to get ahead. And I mean that. I'm not a celebrity or anything, extraordinary. I'm not anyone famous or anything, but all those little things that I do, they all come together because I really, really wanted my family to be pushed ahead. And coming from Tonga, I just really have a drive to like really push my family and to set up my kids and my household. And so that's why it sounds like there's so many different jobs and stuff that I juggle. But the reality is that's where it all comes from. It's for my family. It's for my wife, for my kids. Yeah.
Wow. Because you came from Tonga to New Zealand at the age of 16. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And so how was that? Because there was a real culture shock coming from the islands to New Zealand, especially at that age as a teenager. So how did you navigate all of that and kind of mix and mingle and kind of assimilate in New Zealand?
I think I had an advantage. Starting off because my mum's white. And so I was born and raised in Tongatapu, and I speak Tongan and everything. I went to primary school and did all my high school years there. But, being half caste and being able to speak English automatically kind of puts me on a front foot compared to a lot of other, Pacific Island migrants that come here. So I think I had that advantage already, which is a good thing. However, there was still a culture shock though, because there was a lot of things that weren't the same as what I grew up with. For starters, just being surrounded by white people was uncomfortable, because I was just so used to always being surrounded by Tongans, and so used to being surrounded by bigger people than me. I grew up with dudes that were like 300, from the movie. Like these guys that I grew up with always naturally. I was always the smaller, skinnier one, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you come into a culture where mainly surrounded by white people. There was only one other Pacific Islander at the school I went to. It was a Samoan, and immediately I didn't like him because this is probably just before the internet as well, and so naturally Tonga and Samoa are already sort of not foes but competitive in rugby especially, But me and him eventually became the best of friends. And cut each other's hair.
Whoa.
But if you think about the culture shock, a lot of it was the weather. New Zealand's got much drier climate, so if you're coming from a humid country to a much drier climate, the skin would dry out. I refused to wear like moisturizer because I thought it was feminine to put stuff on your face or to put lip balm on, so my lips would crack, bleed, my skin would crack and stuff. And yeah, just being around the whole different culture of, where people don't share their lunch.
Yeah,
school. That really hit me as well. Like you and I would sit here and you'd eat your lunch while we're talking and not offer me any. And I just felt weird, like, you don't like me?
Yeah.
Because where I grew up, man, like if one person bought like a meat pie at the tuck shop, that meat pie would have like 6 different bites out of it. Everyone gets a bite. Everyone eats. You know what I mean? Like, and so those small little things, they really, and I think they really hit as well to other people that do come over for the first time, and yeah, culture shocks for any culture, I suppose, is quite a hard thing to deal with.
100%, man. Well said.
Man, did that ever make you question like things like your own identity and like fitting in and your ability to fit in? Or were you always confident even back then about your ability to sort of mix and mingle?
Yeah, it's a good question. I come across a lot of, especially hafkas that feel really torn about their identities, trying to fit into like, where do I fit in? Not me. I always 100% knew who I was. I never felt insecure about rolling in the different worlds. There's 2 different worlds I can roll in. Because I could speak English really well and speak Tongan really well as well, can flow in both worlds and switch into both really quickly. So I think that was, I'm really lucky to have that sort of self-confidence, And I was always, when I went to drama school, when I was about 17, 18, I always had quite firm roots in who I was as a person. So I guess over the years I have grown emotionally and mentally, and my thoughts and everything. But when it comes down to who I really am, I've always known at the core who I really am and what I want to be. Yeah.
Man, that's cool.
That's interesting, Mike, because there's a lot of, you see a lot of our people, whether they're Pacifica or whatever, Māori, and that seems to be like one of the biggest issues in terms of identity, knowing who they are, all that kind of stuff, culture. You always hear the saying, "Oh, you're plastic. You're not a true islander." All that kind of stuff. It's more so Afakasi. But bro, I love it that you you just come 100%. Said, you know what? I know who I am. This is who I am. I speak fluent English and fluent Tongan. So, how? Because some of these people might be watching this, or a lot of the men might be watching this, or whoever's watching this, maybe thinking, how do you come to that place? Because there's a lot of young people who are still trying to figure out who they are, even adults, Mike.
Yeah.
So I think we can all talk about, even you, Jay, in terms of some of your thoughts. What do you think that identity is such a big issue, and more so specifically for our men?
To be honest, I find it more amongst the New Zealand-born Pacific Islanders. That's a real honest answer to that. And I think man, it must be hard growing up here, because when I grew up in Tonga, like I went to the bush on Sundays. I went through all the the traditional, all the funerals, the weddings and stuff. I knew, so the culture's already part of me. You know what I mean? So everything that I'm doing, I'm already interwoven into the culture naturally. The food that I'm eating, the climate, it's all the stuff that my ancestors did. I'm already there. You know what I mean? So I have that advantage of like having that. But when you're forced to grow up in a westernized country, then you have to kind of battle for yourself to find that. You know what I mean? And I can understand. So it's not going to be as easy for my children to find their identity as it is for me knowing who I am. And sometimes I find as well, probably for a lot of Pacific Islander New Zealanders, how do I say this? That they are more. They want to express their culture more, or they're trying to reach for it even more than me. But because I don't reach for it so much, because it's just there. I'm just comfortable with it. I've already, you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm putting the right words out.
No. I get it, man.
Yeah.
Man.
So I can understand it's a much harder road for New Zealand-born Pacific Islanders to try and navigate their own identity. Whereas for someone like me, I kind of very fortunate, I suppose, to have been born and raised over there, and had that life, and then come over here, and then it was more the integration over here and to trying to build my own life here, because then I feel like I'm starting again. I'm not from ground zero because I'm half caste, but starting again from a new beginning and then having to build up. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's interesting. I think I think I agree also. I mean, I was born here. My birth father is Samoan and so is my mum. So technically I'm full Samoan even though I wasn't raised with my father. But because of my mum's beliefs, who she inherited from her grandmother who came here, they sort of grew up with the perception that like the Pākehā way is the best way. Like you'll find more success, you'll get ahead more if you only speak English, if you know, sort of go to schools where there's more Pākehā people. So my parents moved us out of South Auckland just as I hit high school and moved me into an area that had a lot of Pākehā people, and I just felt so disconnected. And I realized, it wasn't until I was older that I realized that I felt like I was in this weird middle ground, weird limbo, that like because I'd been raised with a Samoan culture at arm's length, I didn't really know anything about it. All of my perceptions were quite negative towards the Samoan culture. But yet I was almost like the tokenistic brown guy. So I was sort of ticking that box as being like, oh, that's the brown guy in our group. And even then I felt like I was never really accepted with my friends, but trying my best to fit in and be one of them. And then as an adult, you kind of, now things have switched socially where in society it's, you know, it's embrace your culture and speak your native tongue. And now I feel like, you know, and I realize now that there's a lot of us that were born here in New Zealand that are in similar situations where we're kind of in this weird middle ground, trying to learn about our culture as adults and sort of reclaim that cultural knowledge, that ancestral knowledge. Yeah. So although I can look back at it and, you know, it wasn't ideal and there's probably a lot of issues I faced because of that, I'm grateful that at least now I have the knowledge and at least I'm trying to obtain the knowledge. It makes life a little bit more exciting. It means I have to get out a bit more and ask the people who are still around, who have stories and have connections back to the villages and Sa. So
it really is the battle of migration, because you can see, like, from your parents' point of view, what they were trying to do for you.
Exactly.
I get that, you know, I understand that, and they're trying to, and that's for the best, that's for your betterment. You know, that's why they did that move. But, you know, contradictorily, like you feel like a little bit disconnected from your own culture because you're now removed, you know. And I suppose that's the battle of like migration and bringing Pacific Islanders over here and how it moves forward. But then, like, if you think of like the African Americans, you know, like for all those, there's a lot, 400 years of slavery, man. It's pretty terrible. But then they sort of grew their own identity out of that, you know. And you wonder where, as Pacific Islanders, we're going to go, you know, in the next few generations, because this is all a process of evolution.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about.
That is.
Have you had any sort of experiences or
mate, because I love what you said, Mike. Because I noticed like I'll have relatives, you know, obviously they come from Samoa or from Tonga, and they come and they had this sense of confidence about themselves. They're very, very confident. They didn't change who they were in front of people. If they were amongst the Balangis, they were quite. The Balangis loved it, and I think, and you're right. I don't know. Maybe you can tell me if it's true or false. But a lot of my cousins who would come over from the islands, I mean, people would mock them, fobs and all that kind of stuff. But these guys were quite confident. And they'll be in the midst of Balangi people, and they would still be talking, and the Balangi people loved them. For some reason, but they loved them. What the heck? And then for us, for me, it was Kiwi born, like, oh man, I don't feel like I connect with these Balangis, and you kind of feel kind of awkward.
Right.
But these other guys, and maybe it's what you were saying, Mike, because you grew up in the culture, you know who you are, you're firm in your culture, and regardless of where you are, you're still the same. And there's no whakama, there's no shame to express who you really are. And I noticed it, and for me, it's the same thing in terms of being born New Zealand, raised up in New Zealand. But always, there's always a sense of a disconnection, because you had to speak Samoan at home, then you go to school, the English. But more so now, I feel like it's a superpower now. You know, because you we're able to kind of navigate both worlds. You know, whether it's Pacifica or even sometimes Tangata Whenua, or even the Pākehā world. You know, it's we have the best of three worlds, I guess, so to speak. But in the younger days, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I just didn't fit well if I didn't speak fluent Samoan.
Right.
If I didn't sound proper, the English wasn't proper. You didn't fit, and even not just culture, but even just in terms of other stuff or sports, whatever. I didn't fit in here. But I think the older you grow, the more you like you were saying, the more you kind of know who you are, the more comfortable you are in your own skin, and that it doesn't matter anymore because you know who you are. But still, it seems like it's a massive issue in this day and age.
I do get curious about and obviously it's not something I can relate to, but kids who come over and really confident in their identity, did it wear on you a bit, over time, where you just started to question a little bit? In terms of you come, I just remember kids from high school now that's come to mind where they've come from the islands really confident, and they often got misconstrued as the naughty kids.
Right.
But looking back, they were just really confident in what they wanted and they just went out and did it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if the pressures of fitting into, I don't know what you call it, Pākehā, Western society, if that ever bears on children or people that come from the islands, having to fit in. There must be a time where they're confident at first, but eventually they're like, no one else is like me. Maybe I should adapt.
If anything, it's not knowing how certain things work, not knowing how IFPOS cards work, not knowing how to use escalators. If anything, it was that sort of adjustment, not knowing how in the islands when you pull when you're on the bus and you pull the thing on the bus just stops. But not knowing that here in New Zealand, you got to press the thing and there's certain bus stops where the buses stop later down. All these little things, man, you're right. They build a little bit of insecurity because you're not used to you don't know how this country operates. You don't know how the Western world operates, And yeah, over time, I slowly teach myself, and understand how things work, of cell phone credit, how that worked when we first got cell phones. But yeah, there were many little things, adjustments like that I didn't really know or understand. Moisturizing your face, putting lip balm on, all those things, yeah, because New Zealand, the Western world has different standards to the Pacific, which is obviously third world countries. And I remember also thinking when I first came over, I was like, man, track pants and stuff are real cheap actually. Hey. But then realizing that there's a different level between $2 shop track pants and because they're all just, from a Tongan point of view, they're all track pants, until you start to realize the differentiation and labels and stuff and
the brands, the
brands, yeah.
Man. Oh, man. I'm curious about clashes of cultural views on things like masculinity, where you mentioned taking care of yourself, self-care is a normal thing in the Western world. But I imagine masculinity looks different in the islands, and then
so different.
What that sort of navigating that space where you're oh, okay, this is how it's done here, but I'm still not less of a man. This is just the way it's done here. What if there's any internal battles with things like masculinity?
That's a great question, man. That's such a good question. Masculinity in Tonga is you are a man of God and you look after your family and you throw down with whoever. And that's about it, and that's, but those are three very important things. And they're three very, what do you call them? It's not going back, but it's, not hunter-gatherer style, but it's the essence of who a man is, and a man is a leader. Okay. Coming here to New Zealand and how that perception of a male evolves is, I've been fortunate enough to be, sort of surrounded by really good Pacific Island role models, men, and I think of Ruben Wiki, I think of Kevin Mealamu, and men that are really good athletes, but not just that, they're strong men, but they're strong because their character is strong, and what that means is that not necessarily that they'll back down to anyone, but that they are willing to be humble enough to respect everyone. There's that saying, and it's really true saying, is fear no one, respect everyone. And I'd add to that, love unconditionally. It's so important, man. It's so important, because when you respect everyone, you give everyone your respect, no matter where you're at, no matter where they're at. It's the ability to greet people in the eye, shake their hand, be polite, be humble to them, you know, and understand that no matter where they're at somewhere in their journey, but you got to respect wherever they're at in their journey. But also the part of like fearing no one, no matter what room you're in, no matter what table you're sitting at, no matter what your surroundings are, you know, never to be afraid to say what your mind is, say what your heart is, and speak up for who you are, because it matters, it counts, you know. If it doesn't, you wouldn't be there in the first place, you know. And so I've been lucky to be surrounded by kind of like role models like that. My father died when I was 10, buried on my 11th birthday. So I never really had like a father figure growing up from beyond that. And so a lot of the stuff I just kind of taught myself. My mum was a solo mum, and there was the 5 of us, and I was the second eldest. And so a lot of the stuff I just sort of like, I picked and choose what I needed from like different men that I came across. And yeah, and I hope that I've picked the right things.
No, man. Hey, bro, you do some awesome stuff, Mike. I think you have picked up in terms of those who influence you in terms of manhood. But in saying that, like, I know with Tonga, obviously very similar to Samoa as well and other Pacific nations. So vulnerability is, you know, as Pacific Islanders, what were your thoughts in terms of vulnerability? The word vulnerability is kind of quite common now. It's kind of out there now. Was it easy for you? Like, oh man, what's this Western thing about being vulnerable? Express your feelings and your emotions. What was going through your mind? You think, well, what is this? Is this like a Western thing or?
Yeah, it's non-existent. It felt foreign. It's like, why would I be vulnerable? Why would I open up my heart or my thoughts to people that don't know? Why would I do that? You know, so vulnerability, especially for Pacific Island men, I don't think there's vulnerability probably just at home with their wives, and probably only their wives, even if that, you know, some not even, you know, but that's a problem in itself. That's a problem that I see now, you know, when I see, and it's almost like a clash of generations. Because I understand it. I understand like Pacific Island men that refuse to be vulnerable, refuse to talk about things and stuff. Okay. But if they don't talk about it, how the hell the next generation is supposed to know about it? Okay. I'm going to give you a really good example. And this is, I had a daughter I just recently connected with about a year ago. Okay. I hadn't been in touch with her for about 11 years. 11 years. Now, all the backstory and stuff, you know, I felt really, because she's with her mother and stepfather, right? And I shouldn't say stepfather because he is her father, you know. Man, I want to shout out to Junior right now. Like, I have so much love and respect for this guy. He's a brother to me, and we are the two fathers of this beautiful daughter. Anyway, she reached out to my wife on Instagram, okay? And my wife came and told me, she was like, your daughter has reached out to show me the message. I was like, oh my God. What do I do? All the feelings of like shame and stuff come back. And I feel like dirty. I feel like, you know, like I feel like, oh my God, man, like what are my kids gonna think? You know, how am I gonna? My wife was like, you gotta tell the other kids. You gotta tell them. I was like, fuck, man. Like, this is because it brings back all the memories. It was like 10 years ago of all the drama and stuff that had happened, and you know, and how this whole situation had happened. So I set the kids down in the lounge. I literally forced the words out of my mouth. Reaction from my kids was like, oh, we got a sister? Oh my God. That just flipped everything for me. That just, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Like, don't they think that their dad's disgusting? Don't they think, you know what I mean? But no, I saw it as a positive. And then I realized it's all in my head. It's all in my head. I've been doing this to myself when there's a little girl that's waiting to be loved. You know what I mean? Like, so as Pacific Island men, if you don't talk about the stuff, you don't talk about the stuff to your children, if you don't open up about it, like think about if I had made, nah, we don't do that. It's their family. This is my family. We don't do that. Think about if I had done that, and there's a girl there that's like a little bit lost because someone refuses to acknowledge her and stuff, you know. But now the two families work so well together. And I have so much love for like her parents, who we work so well together with, you know. I've been blessed. You know, yeah, it's the only word I can say. I've been blessed. But the more that we hold on to our problems, the more that we think that our problems are our dirty little secrets, then the more we're not educating our children and stuff to know what it's like to face their own demons, to face their own their own secrets and stuff, you know. And if you're doing your children a disadvantage, you're doing them a disservice if you're not being honest, you know. So that's where I stand on, like, that's where I think about, you know, when you talk about Pacific Island men vulnerability. So why it's so important now to like talk about this stuff. We can all sit here though, and we can talk about this right now in 2022, you know. We have no idea how hard it was for like our fathers and our grandfathers to come here and what they were facing and what they were holding on to. And I get that. I understand that, you know. But now you have an opportunity to do your children a favor, you know, to like share with them, well, this was hard because when this situation happened, I felt like this and I felt that he was wrong and da da da. But your children are learning when you talk about that. They're like, oh, okay. And they're taking in their own lessons for themselves. And so like, hopefully or possibly one day when they're in the same situation themselves, they have an opportunity to like, oh, well, Dad told me about this years ago. If he went through it, then, you know what I mean? I didn't have a dad to teach me all these things. So maybe other fathers do. And I salute you if you are out there and you are doing this with your children. I wasn't fortunate enough to have a father, you know, past 10 years old that would like share stuff like that with me. I wish I had, but that's the sort of father I hope to be, and I try to be with my children.
Malo, lover.
Man, that's full on. Big ups on
cool, man.
getting through that. I mean, I can't really imagine. I can kind of imagine, but just the pressure, the internal pressure, because I know the internal dialogue is always, you're always your biggest critic.
Yeah, well, as Pacific Islanders, we have a big thing about shame. Hey, a big thing about shame and about being shamed in public and the family's shamed. And bro, man, stop. You know what I mean? Stop, because that shame is causing a trauma, and that trauma, it's only going to go down through your generations. It's only going to go one place, you know? So that whole thing about shaming people, like, oh, what? He had a daughter that's been hidden away or something? Let's stop with that, you know? It's a good thing. It's a positive thing. I know of many Tongan men that refuse to acknowledge the illegitimate children that they may have had, you know? And they refuse because they block it out, because it's not part of being a family man. What's a family man, you know?
Man, that's so true. Oh, mate, because you open up a can of worms, Mike, because
Oh yeah,
no, you have, Mike, because it's interesting, because I'm thinking about my own dad. My dad kind of, you know, he kind of went out and kind of sowed his, you know, did his thing back in the past, and for, you know, for years, I didn't even realize I had a brother. I didn't realize I had another sister. And I don't even know if I have any other siblings out there. But yeah, but Dad's passed on now. Rest in peace, Dad. But the trauma, because my mom was, and I'm talking about my mom. My mom, God-fearing woman, loves God, loves family. When she found out, oh man, no, want nothing to do with these kids. And I was just thinking, why didn't Dad tell us what was going on here? And you're right, it was the same thing, the whakama, the shame, don't want to, you know, good on Dad for kind of bringing out and telling us later on. But the thing is, I wonder how much of that really impacts the trauma that's been passed on to these kids who don't know anything, and how long did my dad kind of hid the secret, but not being able to talk about it. And you're right, it really is a lot of it, our mental gymnastics in our own heads, like, oh, I can't do this, it's a lot of the shame, a lot of whakama, a lot of pride. But I think what needs to be kind of addressed as well, Mike, and you will have a good insight, and likewise, Jay, is not only the whakama, but our pride as a people. Because I know that's very strong, and whether you're Tongan, Samoan, or Niuean, there's a lot of pride in our people. And so even when you know you're wrong, we're still right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on the pride aspect?
Yeah, pride is a killer of all men, you know, especially our Pacific Island men, you know, pride. The killer of men, one of the biggest causes of suicide, you know, because pride contributes to that mental health and that mental battle that they have, that inner turmoil, you know, that churns inside them, that eats them alive. But you can turn it around and be able to be proud of the mistakes that you've made, and be proud that you can stand up and own them. And that flips everything when you start to own who you are and acknowledge the mistakes that you've been through, or the wrong choices that you've made. You start to own that. You can be proud, really proud of who you are. Do you know what I mean? Because you can be proud in a sense of like you can be proud of like who you think you may be or how you think you want to be perceived. But until you are really honest with yourself and can really look at yourself in the mirror and know that you've been honest with yourself, honest with those that love you, that are around you, then you know that you know that you're hiding something deep down inside, yeah, like it always comes back to my wife, man. Like I can't stress enough that she's such an important part of my life and has supported me supported me through that. That's just one thing. That's just one thing, she has supported me through so many different things. She supported me through getting anger management counseling, gone through that 3 times. I don't know why.
You're such a lovely guy, Mike.
But yeah, she really is. I'm not here today without her. Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It just made me think about the contrast between, a lot of people look at Pacific Islanders and say, oh, such a humble people. But then there's this flip side of like, in a way we're humble, but through another lens, we're also really prideful, especially when it comes to accountability and owning up to our mistakes. And one of the hardest things is looking at yourself in the mirror without any bias, because oftentimes I feel like, there's a lot of justification and, we justify to ourselves why a behavior that we know is not right, how it can be okay in some one-off 1% scenario, and we pass it off as okay. And I think it does take a lot of courage. And I've always been a believer in that if you don't own up to those things that you do, life will keep getting harder and you'll question, why are these things happening to me? But there's always an underlying pattern. There's a pattern there. And if you're not willing to dig things up and find that pattern, you'll never really be able to patch your life together the way that you hope to. And I'm really inspired by just you shouting out to your wife. And I'm a little bit curious about, you mentioned before about the betterment of your family and like all the things that you do. So I was curious about what that image or what those details of like betterment is in your eyes.
Yes. And you got great questions, man. I like
this is because that's the man, man. This is our school teacher here, man. This is our school teacher here.
Betterment for my family means that I hope to leave them in a better place than where I was. You want your children to stand on your shoulders. I want to push them as far as I can. And then wherever that is, they stand on top of that. They push their children. And you hear about the term generational wealth, right? That's financially, and that's in what you own and stuff. There's generational wealth, but there's also generational wealth in like emotional intelligence and understanding how who you really are and what you're capable of and believing in yourself. And those qualities, they're priceless. They're priceless. If you can teach people, if you can teach your children to understand how to like really take full advantage of what they're capable of, how to dig deep, how to really understand that when they're in dark moments that they're going to get through it. Those are real nuggets. If you can teach your children that. And I suppose through the last 20 odd years, I've been in a few dark places. I know what it feels like, but I've always come through. And because I've always come through, I always know that there's always light at the end of each tunnel. And I'm for all our men out there, that no matter where you're at the moment, no matter where you're at, no matter, what little hole you're sitting in, and things around you might seem flash and stuff, but inside yourself that you're in a little hole of darkness. Just know you're going to come through, man. You're going to come through. You're always going to come through. But it takes extra effort to really sort of have that little self-belief to know, yeah, I'm worth more. I can do better than this. I deserve more. I'm capable of more. And really feel fierce about it. And I've had that, and it's not like a hunger, but it's a drive of like, I can do better. I can do better. Mike, you can do better. I literally sometimes say that to myself. You can do better, man. Come on. What is this? What is this shit, man? Come on. You can do better. Do better. And sound like a crazy man. No, for real. Sometimes when I'm driving and stuff, I like talk to myself when I'm driving and it's like a mantra to myself, because I know what I expect of myself. I know the standards that I expect for myself. And I got to be honest about those things. You got to be honest about things with yourself as well. You got to be really honest. Don't lie to yourself. You know, if we got problems in certain areas, then fix them. Identify those things and fix them. Talk to people that can fix them for you or help you fix them. Don't get caught up in thinking like, oh, I'll sort that out next week, man. I'll sort that out next week. Come on, man. Take it. Face on. Deal with it. You know, those are the things that are going to advance our Pacific Island people, is by solving problem by problem. You know, your life is like a series of complicated things, like a puzzle in front of you, but you got to solve it one step at a time, one piece at a time. Just solve this piece today, solve the next one tomorrow, and just keep moving forward. And that's the betterment of like moving your family forward, you know. But your family's not going to move forward if you don't move forward. You know, can't change the world until you change yourself. Everything's got to start with yourself, and then slowly, bit by bit, people start to see or start to feel it as well, and it starts to spread out. And that's where I think that it's really important to always respect everyone, you know, because you don't know where the people's journeys are. You don't know where they're at in life and stuff. I don't know, you know, but so I always got a lot of respect for everyone that I meet, and always very humble as well, because I don't know what that person's going through. I don't know what that person went through last night. I don't know what he's going to go through tonight. I don't know what's in his mind, what's eating away at him. It could be anything. It could be something of his wife. It could be something of his kid. He might have a kid in intensive care, you know. And there's always that other thing as well about, you have to understand about, we have this board at home. It's a grateful board. My wife came up with it. And there's each of our names, and each beside it, you write, we do it like once a week or a couple of times a week, what you're grateful for. And just that exercise alone starts to teach, even taught me, but teaches our children, you know, the little things to be grateful for. You know, like if you're grateful for the roof over our heads, like, you know, when it's winter and it's raining and stuff, I always think like, man, imagine if there was like leaks in our house, man. That would suck, because that costs money and stuff. We haven't got much money at the moment to repair those leaks. But we're lucky, man. There's no leaks at the moment. You know what I mean? Always being grateful for the small things, for opening the fridge and there's food in there. There's been times when I've opened it and there's been like 2 pieces of pizza. There's been moments like that, you know? So being grateful for the small things is another thing that we try and teach our kids. Yeah. Man,
that's cool. I love toku. I can imagine it would be very hard. Like what kind of advice, or maybe even an example, Mike? Because it seems like you've been, obviously you've gone through your own hardships and your own struggles. Has it been like maybe an example of a time where you've been able to actually help someone who's been in that dark space?
I don't know. Yeah, there was a guy, there was a friend of mine, and I had met him for coffee. We had like a 3-hour coffee, and then I went overseas, and while I was overseas, he messaged me and said, "Oh, I need to catch up with you when you get back." And I was coming back the next week, and while I was overseas, he took his own life. So he was going through his own stuff, but it's always hard when that happens, you know. I think that's the first time that it happened to me, someone that I knew and that had reached out, and I was supposed to meet up with him again, and I still got his messages on my phone. Yeah, so I tried to help him. But I feel like I missed the boat. Yeah. You can take the horse to water, but you can't make that horse drink. Can't solve the world's problems. And understanding that and accepting that is probably not an easy process. But learning to try and let that go is probably a lot of guys understand what that feels like, you know, because when that happens to someone that's around you, it takes a part of you with it. And you've got to kind of recover yourself, because you've still got your own life and your own family and stuff that you need to care about and think about. So you've got to recover yourself for that, because you owe them your life. And so the other way to flip it is like, I got to celebrate my life every time I think about, have a memory of him. Yeah.
Yeah, man, man. Jeez. Man, you're getting me all emotional now, Togo.
Yeah, well, I don't think about it until you. I've never thought about like who have I specifically helped or tried to help. You know, I've always try and advise people I come across. I always try and like and share a little bit with them that might encourage them, that might be relevant to their journey daily when I can. It's because we can give. We can give, you know, like sometimes we can't give financially, but if you've got it in your mind, if you know how to speak it out, then you're almost obligated to share it, you know, especially with our fellow Pacific Island men, you know. So that happens a lot. Like I come across a lot of people every day and stuff that I try and offer a little bit of hope, bit of light, and I don't know where they're at, you know. But until you specifically asked, I specifically thought about all the different situations that just jumped out at me. Yeah,
man. Thank you for sharing that, bro. Man,
I don't know. You know, you just sort of made me think about. You know, you talked earlier about the importance of teaching your kids to come through dark moments, and obviously, we can only do so much in terms of preparing ourselves to go through, you know, really heavy situations, and it's not until we go through them that we realize just how difficult they are. And I'm curious about, you know, as a father, how do you pass that on to your kids? How do you teach your kids to be resilient? Because obviously there's a part of us as fathers that just naturally we want to protect our children, but sometimes protecting them means allowing them to make mistakes, allowing them to go through really tough times. Yeah, I'm curious about that aspect of fatherhood and just thinking about your experience going through really tough times and then wanting to pass that on, but do it in a way that, yeah, is meaningful, purposeful, and authentic for your kids.
Don't spoil them. Don't spoil them, man. Don't show your love through like exorbitant things, you know, like with food and with you know, gadgets and stuff. Don't spoil them. Don't just shower them with stuff like that all the time. Otherwise they start to expect it. And so the level changes, you know, because that all becomes a standard that they just expect things like that, you know. Me and my wife, we try to be real simple with them. We try to, but I think the main thing is to talk to them, talk to your children, tell them about what it's like to be in a toxic relationship. Tell them that stuff. Tell them what the red flags are to watch out for. I wish somebody had told me. Nobody told me about that stuff. I never knew that women could be, I never thought that women could be manipulative. See, I never taught this until I started having relationships and I started seeing things happen. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. It's talking to your children and making them understand, kind of guiding them through, you know, because yeah, as much as you can shelter your own children, as much as you can protect them, you know, or like keep them in cotton wool and stuff. The world is a nasty place, you know, and you can be a strong person, but unless you expose, you don't want to expose your children to what the nasty things are, but unless you tell them what the things are that can happen or that might happen or that happened to you or that, you know, that have happened in the past, then only then can they start to understand or slightly comprehend what that might be like or what that feels like. Also, if you tell them what it feels like, what it was like for you, then it starts to make them slightly understand, even if they never went through it, you know. That's the only way I think that you can sort of help them understand. I think also making your children being grateful as well and making them understand what it is to be grateful for the different things that they already have in their life and appreciate the things they have. But more than anything is keeping everything simple and not letting them have too many physical things. You know, because physical materials can start to corrupt and start to disillusion a lot of our children as well. Because we're living in a world now where the internet is a necessity. You know, it's not just an option. You know, remember when it first came out and people were like, "Oh, I'll never get on that Facebook thing or stuff." Or or I guarantee you, man, a lot of that generation now sit there and scroll on TikTok. They just scroll through TikTok, because you know that's all. Sometimes they got the phone in front of them. They just go through. And that's the same generation that said, I'll never have anything to do with that social media stuff, you know, but the internet now has come through into our everyday lives and is such a required part that it's how you deal with that and your children as well. And also understanding that the internet exposes our children to a lot of material as well. So when we gave both our older children phones, we had a set of rules that they had to sign, a contract that they had to sign, and every now and then we'll go through their phones and check it. So monitoring, I think monitoring is quite important because, man, the world out there, there's so many things that could all of a sudden, that your children, like you might have the nicest son or daughter at home, but you don't know what they're watching on their phone, so what they're mentally being exposed to. Because exposing yourself to stuff on social media or on the internet is almost the same as like making the choices in the food that you eat. You know what I mean? It's that diet of like, and it's not necessarily like a physical diet, but it's a mental diet of what you're putting in your mind, and what those thoughts are. And it's interesting, because I hear that there's more and more studies that are saying that Instagram has led to now is linked to a couple of teenage girl suicides here in New Zealand. So it's becoming more and more thing, because think about their little minds. Think about when you were 12, 11, and if you were exposed to this, like you can't even imagine being exposed to stuff that our children are now exposed to. So how are they supposed to adapt? And how are we supposed to parent that? Can only parent it through supporting your children, letting them know that they're loved, that you're always there for them. I'm always here for you. If you need anything, I'm here. If you want to talk about anything, I'm here. Okay. And letting them know as well, it's not real. Stuff that you're looking at is not real. The thoughts that they're making you think, that stuff your thoughts can be monsters. They can eat you alive. Unless you control them, you have to like harness them, harness your thoughts. And how do you tell that to an 11-year-old or 12-year-old? So as much as you can love your children, I think it's keeping everything simple, and always and monitoring. You can't really, you try to monitor what they are exposed to. Don't let them go to bed with their phones, man. Put their phones out in the lounge when they go to bed, because you don't know, like this is how a lot of bullying and stuff happens at nighttime between kids and stuff. Put their phones out in the lounge. Don't let them go to bed, because you don't know as well what they're going to go through. Yeah, we live in a different world. I remember the world before internet. I do, and I'm so glad that there was no internet.
It's true, man. It's true. It is. It's quite alarming, Mike and Jay, because a lot of and you're right. I like how you kind of described it, Mike. The analogy of that, in terms of the what's on the TikTok, what's on Instagram, and so forth. It's kind of like a smorgasbord, smorgasbord of all these things that they can select.
You have all the options.
Yeah,
you have all the options. You can, and nothing's off the table. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, you have all this adult content, and they're young. They're young, and they're scrolling through all of the stuff. And you're right, their brain can't process a lot of the stuff that they're viewing. And something like you're saying, it's not real. And so it'd be kind of cool, diving into your acting career, because some of the people, it's not real. And so in terms of acting, how do you kind of navigate that and kind of talk to your kids about, okay, this is just a role. I'm just playing a character. This is not real. This is, and then your kids see it. Oh, is that you did? Or do you allow your kids to see some of your films?
Me and my wife were asked to role play. This is for, I think, Pacifica Proud, I think. It's a production, but they were doing stuff about domestic violence. And anyway, because we're both actors, they asked us to play the role of the domestic violent couple. Yeah. And we had never really acted before. And this one is pretty violent, man, pretty violent. And he I grab her and I strangle up against the wall, And when we're shooting at stuff, like emotions are right up here, because we're working. We're working. So we're in our characters and stuff. We're making sure that we're both safe and everything's okay. But we're trying to go to the places where we know that this couple have obviously gone to emotionally, why they've ended up there physically, right? And we shoot the whole thing, and then we watch it, and we're like, oh man, it's cool, because we never really worked with each other before, done a scene together. And my wife's like, our kids can never see this. And so she tells her dad, look, this is what me and Mike did. And he was like, oh yeah, it's good. So do not show the kids. She said, yeah, don't worry. All right. Anyway, I think we went to the gym, and we came back, and they were, he's like, it's your mom and your dad, showing them, and they were like, oh wow. But our children, because our kids are in a house of two crazy actors, They
Maybe he was
understand,
testing
yeah.
the kids.
But they were like a little bit shocked, I think. But then you got to explain to them like that's not real. That's not real. We're just acting. And then you explain the whole thing about playing characters, and characters are creations from a writer. A writer's written a character in a scenario, then the actor comes into it, and the actor's got to inhabit that character and think the way the character thinks, and make those choices that the character's choice has made those choices. But as an actor, you've got to navigate in how those characters make those choices. So that creates the, it makes the character three-dimensional rather than making the character just being like a. So sometimes when you watch something and you're just like, so he's a bad guy. It's a bad guy, but he's just a bad guy. But then sometimes when you watch, probably a good example is, remember Heath Ledger's Joker?
I was literally thinking the same
bad
thing.
Guy, but there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of there's a reason. There's a whole arc to how he got to that point.
Absolutely.
And that's art at work. That's him as an actor building that, and structuring that so that you as the audience, understand it. But if you as the audience were just watching Batman and then the Joker comes along and he's evil and he's just bad, but when you as the actor have the ability to take a character and make it three-dimensional, so that you can see all aspects to why that person makes the decisions that they make, why they do those things that they do, what do they eat in the morning, when they wake up in the morning, what do they think about? All those little things, they build a story behind the character and how the character exists and how the character lives. So explaining that to your children are like, whoa, it's trippy. And it is trippy, but at drama school really helped me sort of hone that and understand. It's almost, it's quite similar to psychology. It's stepping into someone else's shoes or a different mind space and trying to build that, different levels. And then you got to shade them. So when's he light? When's he dark? Where's the moments at? All those little things, it's tweaking. And it's acting is a beautiful artwork when you see it, when you see someone go through different layers of emotions and stuff. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. But it takes really good honed actors to be able to manipulate that and find that journey. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome.
That's cool.
It just sort of
That's
made me
so good,
think
man.
about like how when writers are creating these characters, they can try and piece together like a logical backstory and all these sort of things that make the character. But then an actor can come in and it's sometimes there's some things I'm assuming there are some new things that are only discovered when the actor gets into that character and, like you said, make it three-dimensional. And you sort of just made me think about like Heath Ledger, for example, as the Joker. Like I imagine that the description he was given of the Joker was slightly different to the person he became as the Joker. There were little nuances that he would have discovered, whether it be him bringing a part of himself to the role or being so deep into the mindset that he was able to discover other nuances to the character. But is it kind of like that as an actor in terms of sometimes you discover new things?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's what the rehearsal floor is so important for. When you're rehearsing with the other actor and you're building the scene and you go again and you've brought your character and you've done your backstory of your character and how your character has come to exist, and you're working with the other actor and you hope the other actor's done the same work as well, and then you're on the floor and you're working it, and what happens between you and the other actor is the magic, that the audience will eventually get to see. But when you're rehearsing though, that's when different things might come up, different options might come up, different offers might come up, like, oh, shall we try it angry or shall we try it happy or shall we try it lighter or shall we try it, or what if they were in the room and it was really cold? How would these actors really act? Does it change the tempo of, all those little things make them discover different, I suppose, different choices they can make and they go on different journeys, and that helps build the story. But it all hinges on like whether those choices that they make are relevant to the story as a whole, because you're only there to serve the story. So a lot of actors make it about themselves.
Wow, that's a cool one. That's cool, Mike.
A lot of
Yeah.
actors do, yeah. They think, oh, it's about me, man. It's me time. Like you're sitting there, you're blah, blah, blah. My turn, my line.
Jeez. But have you come across a lot of actors like that when you're obviously in the industry, when you're acting and you're like, and they kind of you do your part and then they kind of do their part, like, ooh, and you kind of automatically, man, this guy's just or she's going over the top now. What's going on here? How do you deal with that?
You talk to the director.
Go through.
No, because if you deal with it directly with the other actor, it's going to create a clash.
Yeah.
But you say to the director, "Hey man, this guy that I'm dealing with, he's just like, he's not even listening to me. He's waiting for his turn just to say his line, and he's already thinking about how am I going to say the next line, man? Am I going to do it like blinking, or am I going to do that twitch, or am I just going to do it straight deadpan? Like, oh, my turn. Okay, so here we go. I know them all.
What was the names?
My agent's going to call me tomorrow.
Oh, that's cracked up, man. Oh, man. That's a cool one, Mike. Because it is. It's because I saw one of your recent feature films, or one of the series, and I know we talked about it early on before shooting or before filming, and it was a dark character. And I'm thinking, Tene Sa, and I was like, man, how do you? Because I'm thinking sometimes for some of these actors, you talk about Heath Ledger, how do you actually turn off that character? Like, can I turn it off and hey, I'm back to Mike now? Because some of those roles can be I can
consuming, consuming. Yeah, you gotta learn how to let it go. And some actors I do know struggle to like let things go, but that's part of the job. That's why it's a job, and that's why it's a job for actors to be able to like find out how they step into the character's shoes and how they let it go. Everyone's different. Some people use what's called a method acting, where they'll stay inside that character for the duration of filming or the duration of the show. You know, they'll stay in it. And there's pros and cons. And some people know how to just let it go at the end of each day, walk home, go home to their family and stuff and switch back. But I do think like when you do try to do that, you probably never fully let it go, when you do go home at night, because you got to come back in the morning and switch back into it again. And so it can be quite challenging. But that's definitely one of the challenges of being an actor, is being able to step in and step out of the character without it harming yourself too much. Yeah.
That's interesting, man.
Fascinating.
Yeah, because if you think about it, actors go from different roles to different roles, and you gotta let this one go and then go to another one that's really, and that was probably one of the reasons as well why I took that role on. So Role's he's a nasty guy, man. He has sex with girls and he films it secretly and then he puts it on the internet and makes people pay for it, right? But I took it on, one of the biggest reasons why I took it on is because it was so far across from the other character that I just played. I just finished playing John Olamo's dad in Jonah, and he was very different. He only spoke Tongan. He was generation older than me, and I had great fun exploring, making him three-dimensional, because the media at the time hadn't really brought him out in the best light. The media, New Zealand media, had basically just said he was a alcoholic that would beat Jonah, but I wanted to go a little bit deeper than that, because I know that a lot of our Pacific Islanders, sometimes, when our parents beat us, it comes from a different place. It comes from a place of love, because they think that they're showing love. I get that, I understand that. If you can show that, if you can show that where it comes from, that place of love, then that all of a sudden gets the audience seeing him in a different light. Like, because sometimes it's all people know. Yeah, and you can't change what people know. If this is what they know, then this is what they know. And so building that, was quite a beautiful process, or building that character. And he only spoke Tongan, which I loved. I could just operate all of the scenes and stuff in Tongan and free flow and stuff, and talk to the directors about maybe he'd say this, or maybe he'd eat on Sunday night, he'd eat like a sandwich with corned beef in it, come in a singlet and tupenu to the front door. All those things that I knew from growing up, I could incorporate that into this guy. And then going across all the other way to over here, which is like a really rich guy that lived in an apartment on K Road that, that was really vain, was driven by his vanity and his lust for himself and also for women, and making money off that, was quite a good contrast. And yeah, so I enjoyed stepping out of that and stepping into this, because it's you as an actor, you really want to show off your versatility the most thing, because if you can show off your versatility, then as an actor, it probably ensures that you get more jobs. But not here in New Zealand.
And it sort of made me think, does being, and this might be a bit of a left field question, but does being strongly connected to your identity and knowing who you are strengthen you as an actor? Does it help you as an actor?
Yeah. really believe so, yeah. Because I'm never really searching for myself. I never really have the. I know a lot of artists, not just actors, go through moments where they're like, "Who am I? Who am I really?" And I hear that, but that's never been me. I've always kind of known who I am and what my sort of core beliefs are. And that's always because I've sort of got that sort of, it's like roots down into the ground for me, and from there I can basically my branches can go any sort of which way, but my roots are deep and strong and I know exactly where I'm at and who I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Man, that's so cool.
You sort of made me think about, you mentioned versatility before, and we know, at least I'm assuming that sometimes it must play on actors' minds in terms of being typecast, and so the importance of like versatility in terms of roles and things like that. Are there any sort of roles that you'd be like, oh, that'd be really cool to do, like some dream roles that you'd like to try? I imagine for Pacific actors that you get a lot of roles in terms of being a Pacific person, but are there any roles outside of being a Pacific person that you're like, I'd like to do that? I think of like The Rock, who's recently playing Black Adam, who's like Egyptian heritage in the comics, and he's been able to make this role and other roles his. Yeah, are there any ones that sort of come to mind for yourself?
No, not so much, not so much, because any role is, I suppose, a challenge in itself, and I respect each role as it comes up for its own challenge, because its own, I've never had an amazing drive or pull to be like a superhero or anything. I've never, probably because I'm Tongan, I have probably more of a calling or a feeling for like for Tongan roles, because it's what I know, it's where my heart is at, it's where my core's at. But aside from that, I don't have any sort of, there isn't no crazy role out there that I've always really wanted to play. Yeah, I think probably the most thing is just respecting each role as it comes up. Whatever the audience thinks about the characters, that's up to the audience, but you as an actor can never judge what that character is. You can never, the moment you start to judge what the character is, you lost your way already, because you've already started to make decisions about who that character is, and you're about to play that person. So how can you, it's like you finding the flaws within yourself and being like, oh, but no, he's too fat. All this is happening because he's too fat. Well, that sort of stops the growth, for like being able to step into and understand why is he like that? What happened to him? Why does he see the world like that? Or how has he come to this place today? So yeah, so no, I haven't had any aspirations to play any sort of crazy character. I respect all roles as they come up.
Cool.
Yeah. Also here in New Zealand, because there's it's hard to find consistent work as an actor. It's one of the hardest things, is to be able to find consistent work as an actor, and trying to support your family as an actor. That ain't gonna happen. You know what I mean? Unless you're working on something that's really secure, like Shortland Street, or unless you're really, and there are quite a few talented people that are versatile enough to be able to go from job to job to job to job. But I was never blessed enough to be able to do that. So because of that, I've always been able to like do different things on the side, and claw my way to like try and pay my family's rent, my family's mortgage, figure out different ways. It's always forced me to be even more versatile in real life. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool, man. Oh man,
I've got one other thought. Sorry, it came to mind as you're talking about. I'm a big believer in like the life, the journey that life takes you on is everything is for a reason. And so I'm curious about, has there ever been a role where like, how you've got all these other side hustles, these other opportunities that you've done outside of acting. Have you ever found that you've borrowed skills from those different roles and it's actually helped you in a role?
Oh, you mean have I borrowed different skills from life things?
Yeah.
That's helped me in, firstly, your phrase, like everything happens for a reason. It's so true. It's so true. All the different side hustle stuff that I do, they've all happened for a reason, and I can't necessarily think of like an actual acting role where like that's contributed to it, but in reverse, I can see that there are so many other things that happened. If I didn't do the fencing job, I wouldn't have been traveling. If I wasn't traveling, I wouldn't be listening to podcasts. If I wasn't traveling, listening to podcasts, I wouldn't have started my own podcast. If I hadn't started my own podcast, I would never have done podcasts, okay? And I never would have met Ruben. When I met Ruben, we had a chat about buying a house. If I hadn't done that podcast with Ruben, I never would have met Don Ha. If I had never met Don Ha would have helped me get my license, made me a real estate agent. All connected. Everything's all connected. So following your heart, following your passion, following your drive is such an important thing. If you don't do it, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you don't know where each path is going to go. Now, being brave to make those decisions, to make those choices, to go on those paths, man, you got to be brave. It's not easy. It's not easy to step out of your comfort zone and be like, do you know what? I could try real estate. What? Aren't you an actor? Aren't you a trainer? Don't you sell fencing? You're real estate now? You know, like, but you have to be brave. You don't know where that path's going to go. So you got to take that leap. And I don't know where it comes from, but I've always had that confidence in myself to be like, you know, I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to give podcasting a go. I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to do all my research into the equipment, into the mics, into the light, into the cameras, into the editing. I'm going to teach myself all the stuff. I'm going to do it by myself. Well, with my wife, obviously. But yeah, everything is interconnected. Your whole life is, you know, there's reasons for everything, how everything happens, how it all, and that's where it's so important to always remember that if you're in a dark place, you're there for a reason. You're there for a reason, man, because something else is going to happen. Something's going to happen. You're going to come out of it. You're going to come through it, and you're going to look back and realize, I went through that because I needed to know about this. If I hadn't gone through all the dark places and stuff that I've been through, it wouldn't make me the father and the husband that I am today. I'd still be in search of something, I don't know, something else that I feel was going to complete me, you know, or something that, you know, a lot of my friends, not so much my friends, but people I know that are still continually searching for something, you know, and are probably not the most pleasant people to be around because they're not complete within themselves. So they're still sort of searching, trying to find something. They don't know what it is, you know. Yeah. You've had a lot of interesting guests on here. I've listened to a few of these podcasts. You guys do really well, man. Yeah. I love the contrast of different men that come and sit in the seat and their different points of view, you know, because not all, and some of them say it, you're not going to agree with my point of view. And they're right. Some of them, I don't agree with their point of view. I don't agree at all, you know, but that's the beauty of running a podcast is that people have time to like get their point across. But there was one podcast that stood out to me. There was a guy that was talking about, I can't remember his name, but he was very, very religious, and he was very strong about it, you know, and I disagreed with what he was saying because of my own point of view, and that everything's much more broader spectrum, and you come at your life, you should come at your life from a, you know, I think that you should come at your life being more humble and respecting everyone, no matter what their religion, no matter, you know, it doesn't matter whether they are, what's their religion? The headscarves.
Muslim.
Whether you're Muslim or whether you're Hindu or whether you're Christian or whether you're Mormon or whether you, doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is the person that's in front of you and their heart and how they treat you, I think. Yeah.
Man, that's so inspiring. You like I said early on when we introduced you, you're highly motivated. It really is. You're really highly motivated. And I love the fact that you say, hey, it's not about judging people. You respect everyone.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful because, and that's what it is. We hope that whoever comes on the table, Mike, and regardless of what they share and their beliefs and their core beliefs, whatever it is, that everyone has a feels safe to kind of speak their mind and be themselves, be authentic. Otherwise, like you're saying, you're doing a disservice for yourself, and not only for yourself, but others around you. And that's so interesting, Mike, because you're an actor, the real estate, all those things that you're juggling, and you're saying that all those things, if those things didn't happen, then I wouldn't you wouldn't be in this place. Because I think, how do you do that? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, acting. How did you go from real estate to selling fencing? How did that all connect? And when you were sharing that with you, Ruben, connecting all that kind of connecting the dots for us, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And so you talk about you're confident. You're so confident, and then I love it. I love it that you're unlocking this mentality of, because we have a lot of people who've come on the tables, and it's cool. That's cool what they believe in and what they say and what they share, and we talk about humility. But you've taken that to a whole new level in terms of, it's cool to be humble, but also it's cool to stand out.
Yeah. Well, you kind of have to. I mean, you don't have to stand out, but you have to have that ability to be able to respect everyone in their journey. Because if you can't do that, then you can't relate to anyone, you know? And most people, what they're craving in life today, you know, because we're also stuck behind our screens and stuff, stuck behind our phones, is for another human to relate to us and where we're at and how we're feeling, you know? It's never ending though. It doesn't end here. It doesn't, you know, like we sit here today and we talk. This is the great thing about podcasts. We sit here and we talk about my journey, where I'm at right now. But if we sat down another year with anyone, the journey's different. My journey's different. I'm at a different place, you know. So it's ever evolving. And as it evolves though, like the biggest thing I can always put back into myself is like, so now you're up against this. How do you deal with this now, Michael? Because problems always, you know, they pop up all the time. How do you deal with this now? What have you learned so far in your 39 years to look at this now and try and dismantle it and figure this problem out? You know what I mean? And still to this day, I still go through times where I'm down, times where I don't know how to get out of things. I got to stop, breathe, reevaluate, reconfigure it, you know, take it apart, put it back together again, breathe, take time out, figure out how to look after myself, how to think about the problem from a different angle, solve it, go again. It's ever evolving. You're going to have a different set of problems tomorrow to what you had today, you know, but hopefully what you learned today can help you attack the set of problems tomorrow. Yeah. But podcasting is really cool because you hear different points of view from different people. So even as you sit there and interview people and ask people questions and stuff, you yourself are like sponges that are taking on different little bits from different people, you know. And so altogether, your intellectual capability of like hearing different points of view from different walks of life, you know, really increases. So I know you guys are sitting there really quiet, but I know that there's like a mountain of like...
We are. And it's just tuning mic. It's like, man, this guy, man, you're messing with my mind, man.
It's absolutely my favorite part about this is
podcasting,
like, yeah, it's just the learning. It's like, I always take something away and I'm like, what can I apply to my life? And obviously not everything sticks, but you just pick what works for you at this moment in time. Because like you said, you know, a month from now, even a week from now, you know, we're different, we grow. And so our approach to life and the problems changes as well. And so I'm really grateful that we have this opportunity to learn from everyone that sits on the table with us.
It is. And because the biggest thing, the biggest learning right now for me, Mike, what you've been sharing is the service. And I think the guys who come on or whoever comes on the table and they share, you know, it'll be a disservice to not kind of, oh man, okay, I get that, I understand that, and I understand where they're coming from. And for us, AJ, and even for Brad and Charles, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but it'll be a disservice if we don't take on board the richness that people share on the table. You know, we can see it, we can do a podcast, and, oh, that's great, and you're like, oh, I'll take that on board and not do it. It would be AJ. It would be such a disservice. Like, oh man, Mike's saying some nuggets here, and wow, that's awesome. I want to do that, and never apply it. I think for those who are watching and listening, it would be such a disservice to not like, okay, take on board what Mike's saying and say, man, and I'll do it. I think a lot of it's got to do with, I don't know what it is, Mike or Jay. Why is it that sometimes we hear some great things, really encouraging things, really inspiring things, and yet we don't apply it, or we don't kind of, okay, let's do this, or activate it. Why is that?
Something comes to mind in terms of, I think about some in my final year of primary school teaching. I'll actually be teaching at a school in Papakura, intermediate, out in Papakura. And it's something that I think about with the kids is like, the kids are always so scared to try new things, and I think it's because there's something in them that something's been programmed in them to either be perfect or not try at all. There's no middle ground. It's hard for them to see a middle ground. And so I think sometimes as men, or at least maybe from my own experience, there sometimes is a fear of you want to get it right the first time.
Right.
And so sometimes that just...
It's fear of failure.
Yeah, exactly.
Fear of failure and being judged. You know? And especially at that age, you know, they don't want to be embarrassed in front of their friends and stuff. They're like, oh, shame. You know, and it's that fear of like, but it holds our own people back because... But I understand it, you know, because it's almost like the tall poppy syndrome. The person that reaches out, it's the person that's like, you know, almost cut off or like discriminated against or, you know, called names. But I listened to something really interesting. I can't remember who the guy was, but he said that to break through the glass ceiling, you're gonna get cut. Glass ceiling's there for a purpose because no one else has gone through it before. But if you're gonna be the one that's gonna break through, it's gonna cut you. You're gonna hurt. It's not gonna be an easy process. It's not gonna be a smooth process to break through that glass ceiling. But when you do, you are the first. You know? So if you're always looking to challenge yourself, if you're always looking to like never be comfortable, you know, what's next? You know, I'm not trying to say that should be an obsession, but if you're always pushing yourself to be better than you were yesterday, you're gonna get somewhere. You're definitely gonna get somewhere. A lot of the high performance people that I know, a lot of them Pacific Island people, they have one thing in common, and I found this out when I talked to a lot of them, and because I really thought about the conversations we'd have and stuff. The one thing that they have in common is a work ethic. Work ethic, you know. They do the things they do, little habitual things that they would do, but they would do them repetitively, even if they didn't want to. Their work ethic, their ability to get up and get it done all the time, you know, consistently becomes a habit. And that habit builds and builds and builds. And so it becomes just their normal, their standard, their work ethic that would separate them from the pack, make them special, you know, make them be bigger achievers, because what they had taken as small little habits that they had built to being into their work ethic was now a standard that was way above other people's normal standard. And if they held themselves to it all the time, that consistency put them into high performance and put them into being able to achieve so much more because they expected so much more from themselves. Yeah.
Oh man, and it just makes me wonder, Jay and Mike, because like we could be sharing some stuff on the podcast, Mike, and most of the speaker or most of the guest, and there's some nuggets there. And is it because of that? Is it because sometimes like, oh, that sounds great. I love what Mike is saying. It's so encouraging, so inspiring. But, and then yeah, we got all these thoughts: failure, whatever it is, mistakes. I don't want to make any mistakes. But could it be? And just you can agree or disagree. Could it be because sometimes we're just lazy?
Yes. 100%, man.
Lazy.
100%. Yeah. It's, you know, you can't, like I said before about looking in the mirror at yourself. You got to be honest with yourself. You got to be honest with like, what am I not doing right? You know, what am I falling down on here? You know, and if it's literally just being lazy, why am I being lazy? You know, like I really want to achieve this thing, but I just can't. I can't get up at like 5 a.m. or I can't get up at 5:30 to like, I know I've got a really busy day and I've only got like maybe half an hour that I could possibly productively use towards this bigger dream of mine. Why am I not doing that? Oh, maybe because I'm up too late, or maybe because for whatever reason, then you start to work backwards. But 100%, man, 100%. Being lazy is one of the biggest contributors, like is one of the biggest reasons why we never get shit done. You know, but if you start to set in place little goals, you know, like why am I not losing weight? You know, is it because the food I'm eating? Is it because I'm not exercising enough? Why? Start to backtrack it. You know, if you need to work out more, go for a walk. Start small. You don't have to be a CrossFitting champion. Go for a walk. The walk 2 weeks later turns into a little jog. The jog turns into a run. You do like maybe just 2K. Start with 2K. You bring it up, take it up to 5K. Small steps, incremental steps. You know, all these little things as humans, man, all these little things, they build into something. But they don't happen if you don't start. Until you start, then you're going to be the same place you are now. 10 years rolls by really fast. In 10 years, you're still looking at yourself going, man, 10 years ago, I had this thing like, I was going to start a podcast. Man, I wonder what would happen if I'd done that. Yeah,
that's sad. That is sad. Yeah. Like,
but
that's
10
so
years, like, time rolls so fast.
Yeah.
It rolls so fast. And like, you may think that 5 years sounds like a long time and stuff, right? It sounds like a long time because we feel like the world moves slow. In reality, it's actually really minuscule in the bigger perspective of time. Think about dinosaurs and stuff, right? 5 years is a very, very short time. So like, if there's things that you want to achieve, start working towards them. Start the smaller steps towards them. If you don't start, you're never going to get there, you know, or you're never going to get close to it, or you're never going to know what it's going to feel like. As a father, I know that it's really important for your children to watch you try. If your children don't watch you try, you're going to expect them to try. One of the hardest things is like standing on the sideline at kids' rugby games and hearing the parents Like go mental at some of the kids. Like, bro, why? It's his game, man. Like you had your time. Just watch. Just watch, you know? Watch your kid, like support your kid and stuff. But the shame and stuff you see some of the kids feel on that field, that's not cool, man. You know, like he's trying to have fun and you're like almost losing your shit over like him missing a tackle or something. Get up, son. Get up. Come on. Next one. Good effort. That's support though. That's invaluable. You know.
Bro, man, you're speaking facts, man. I feel convicted now because I'm one of those dads on the sideline. Come on, what are you doing? But it's so true. It's so detrimental when we kind of do that to our own kids. And I think that kind of gets me even while we're speaking, Jay and Mike, is that we have so much expectation on our kids. We expect them to do this and that. And you're right, because our sons could be looking at us and going, you expect so much from me, Dad, but what are you doing?
You're not an All Black. Why are you giving?
What are you doing? And I when you sharing this, oh my gosh, because I do the same thing to myself. Like, oh, you gotta do this, train hard, do this. And I don't know, maybe my son, maybe I don't know. He's probably talking to his mom, but he probably sometimes he must be saying, man, that's great, Dad. You expect so much from me, but I also expect so much from you too.
Yeah, but also like when he's out on that field, he's just trying to impress you.
Yeah.
He's just trying to impress you. You know, like he's playing for you. You know, like he's so proud that you're there. You're watching him, and oh, my dad's here. You know, I'm gonna go hard. Gonna go hard on this one, and he might miss a tackle or something. But if you drop dead tomorrow, if a bus hit you tomorrow, what's he gonna remember? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I never really made my dad. Like my dad always thought I sucked at rugby. I'm not trying to use you as an example or anything, but life is today. Life is here. Life is now. If your children never know how you feel, or you know, like really think about it. Like you could be gone tomorrow. What have you left behind? Or what have you really left behind? You know what have you really built? What are you really leaving behind? We get so caught up, especially here in Auckland, in like a rat race of trying to pay the mortgage, trying to pay the bill, trying to keep food on the table. We're in inflation at the moment. It's even worse. You know, we get so caught up in all this stuff. As males, as men, as the providers, it can be so much going on in your minds that you forget to look after the people that love you the most, your wives and your children that are always there. If you drop dead tomorrow, what have you left? What have you really left? Yeah, he was great. My dad worked really hard and stuff, you know, and really respect him. Man, I wish he had taught me like how to maybe change nappies or, you know, like just the small basics, or how to maybe if he took some time to help me learn how to drive the car. Your life is here. It's now. It's today. You gotta live it. You can't get too caught up in this rat race of life. Work is still gonna be there tomorrow. Take a sick day. I mean, I hope my boss is watching. No, but take a sick day. Take time every now and then. Just take a day out. Be present with the ones that you love. You can't. Money's still going to be there tomorrow to be made. That's guaranteed. Money's still going to be there tomorrow to be gained. The time, though, will not be. The school holidays that have just gone, right? Like there's days that you can take a day off. You can take a couple of days off to spend with your children because they're at home. You can spend that time with them. You don't have to work the whole time. You know what I mean? Your life is your life. It's in your hands. It's there for you to enjoy. It's not there for you to suffer. You know, you have to love it. I have to remind myself, I'd sit here like I'm preaching about this stuff, right? I got to remind myself the same stuff. My wife has to remind me the same stuff as well. I get it. Get so caught up in like all these different deals and stuff and different sales and stuff. And I gotta get this done by this deadline. And I get it, you know, but at the same time, all that stuff, man, doesn't exist without what's in my house, what's in my home, you know, because that's what I really care about. That's the stuff that really matters. To me, it does. Other people have different drivers. Other people have different motivations. So not everyone's the same. This won't apply to everyone. But this is how I feel.
It's good, man. That's so good. So rich, Mike. Oh, do you want to add anything, Jay?
It just helped remind me about the importance of like being deliberate with your time, with your action, and not sort of leaving it up to chance. And speaking of time, you know, when we're talking about like how fast time goes by, I'm sure as a parent, if you look back at how fast your kids have grown, that's always my indicator to me of like how fast time goes by. Is look how fast they've grown. 1 minute you're holding them and they're like the length of your forearm, and then the next minute they're
taller
running
than me.
off to school on their own.
My son's taller than me. Yeah, and I can still remember him being a baby, being a child, and now he's like 6'2". He's taller than me. And where did the time go? You know, and what did I do with that time? And was I a good dad during that time? Yes and no. You know, like how accountable was I? Was I everything that I had wanted to be as a dad in that time? You know, like one of my biggest problems that I go through at the moment, one of the biggest challenges for me is my patience with my children. Believe it or not, after everything that I've spoken about, it's my patience with my children. I try to backtrack it, like, why am I so impatient? You know, have a little boy that just turned 5. You know, but because there's so many kids and because I've been doing it for so many years now, that it starts to wear thin. Your patience starts to wear thin because you feel like you've been saying the same stuff all these years. You know, have a shower now, get out now, put your pajamas on now. You feel like you've been saying the same stuff over and over and over and over and over. But I was talking to my wife about it, and I was like, I think sometimes I let my life get in the way of like my patience with my children, you know. And because I talk about always trying to better yourself, that's part of me that I need to always work on, is my patience with my children. Because man, I have moments where I'm just like, man, this dad gig, I'm over it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it today. I quit today. Done. Enough. You know, 14, 15 years is enough. I don't want to do it anymore. These kids are driving me crazy. They never listen. They're stupid. And then I'm like, Mike, where'd that come from? You know, where'd that come from? Why you like that today? Then you got to backtrack it. Like, why are you not looking after yourself? You're a leader here. You're a father here. You're a parent. You know, do better, man. Do better. What's going on? Why are you not looking after yourself to suddenly take it out on the people that you love the most, that you fight the hardest for? You're taking it out on them, you know, your impatience and stuff with them. You know, it's really being real with yourself and being honest with yourself about where you're falling down. Because only when you start doing those things, when you're like, for real, when you start to be honest with yourself, you start to really advance even further in life. You know, we don't have much time on earth as humans, you know, but we do have an ability to like push the envelope as far as we can and let our children see that. Hopefully they can push it a bit further than their children. That's how you start a legacy.
That's so true, man. That is so true. Oh, man. My Lord lover, Togo, man. There's been some raw, I guess if anything, just, you really have spoken to me. Just some of the things you've been sharing. And you're right. You're absolutely right in terms of, you know, we can go out there and spread love and respect to other people, and we do that on a daily basis. All of us, we go out there, we treat people with respect, and we love on them and all that kind of stuff. But it's quite pointless if we do that outside the 4 walls, and we come back home and we give so little to our kainga, our family, or our aingas. But I love I love your honesty. Because you could have just said that and not mentioned your son and what, yeah, and even how you felt like, oh, I'm over this gig.
Yeah.
But it is there are times as fathers, and there will be times, even more times. Hey, Mike, you'll be like, man, I don't want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on in here and all that kind of stuff. But to have the resilience to keep pushing through and realizing, I think if anything, admitting, being honest, wholeheartedly honest with ourselves. And I agree. When you're truly honest with yourself, you see things happen, and and being positive about who you are. We had Docs Valley, you know Docs, yeah, Docs Valley, and one of the things that really kind of helped me in terms of growth and evolving was his positivity. He said, just be positive. He watched Nightingale, something on YouTube, a clip on YouTube. And he said he switched his mindset. Everything, a lot of the negativity that he was facing and a lot of the mental gymnastics that he was facing. He listened to this clip on YouTube, and he said, and it was all about positivity, the power of positivity. I know people think, oh yeah, whatever, but for him, it rang true for him. And he said, when he was able to stop being negative, stop talking about all the rubbish that was happening for him, and switch it and say, hey, I need to look at it in a different perspective or a different way. He started to see things evolve for the better, and what you're doing is it's cool. It's so cool. I love the versatility, but the learnings that you've kind of gained or garnered from all the things that you've done, and you're sharing it with us.
Yeah, Docs Vale is 100% right. You know, like all the no's that you get, They're opportunities. You don't know it, and it might not feel like it, but if you start to see them as opportunities, there's a reason why that's a no. Why is it a no? Because something else is opening. They say that when one door closes, another door opens somewhere. It just takes you a little bit longer to find where that door is that open, but you will find it. Being positive is so important because it changes. You start to stop being ungrateful for the things that you already have, and you start to see everything in a positive light, understanding that gas in my car. We don't live in a world where the oxygen is harmful, where we can breathe the air. You know what I mean? There's so many things around you that you take for granted. I think I'm living in New Zealand in a Western world. There's many things, I heard someone else talk on your podcast as well about not having power for a day or a night, and what that suddenly meant for the household, realizing that we all rely on the internet, that our washing machines and everything relies on power. But there are parts of this world that don't have power. We have power. We switch something on, we turn a tap on, water goes. When did we stop being grateful for these things and understanding that human race has brought us to this point where we have all these things readily available that we can do. However, we have become too comfortable as a race that to start appreciating how far the challenges that have brought us to this point. And we start to get too comfortable, then we start to mentally get into our own gymnastics. I think though that for me, working out is quite a key thing for me. And when I work out, it puts me into a place that is where I'm at peace with myself. I find it inner peace. And I didn't find that probably about 10 years ago. I started realizing that working out was more than a physical thing for me. It was a mental thing. When I first started working out, I'd work out and cry. Tears coming down. Yeah, it put me into like a place that where the tough cardio would really challenge me, and I would think of the situation that I was in at the time, and I want to push past, and I'd be crying, while I was working out. It was like an emotional, cathartic experience, but it eventually turned me into a trainer because I became comfortable being uncomfortable. I went through a time where I was a solid parent to a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. They were very young. And it was a tough time. Didn't have a car. And Nora, my wife, she had loaned me her car and stuff. But it's not easy being a solid parent. It's not easy being a male solid parent. Being a solo father is something else, because being a solo father, I thought going through it that I was like, man, I just don't think I've got the patience that a solo mum would have had. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I thought. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I thought naturally as a guy, it's just harder to find that patience with my children, even though I am the sole provider here right now. I thought that women probably do it better. I don't know. But that's sort of when I started working out and started realizing the power of like moving your body, sweating, and pushing yourself beyond your limitations, not just physically, but mentally as well. So once you start to push your body beyond its physical abilities that you think it's able, your mind follows. So it's like, I think Les Mills has that saying, hey, free the body, the mind will follow. Yeah, I think that's where that comes from, but it's pretty true. Once you start to push your body beyond its limitations, and when you're gasping for air, you think this is the end of the world. I can't breathe anymore. I'm done. You push yourself a little bit further. Your mind gets used to that exercise as well. Your mind gets cornered. It'll push itself a little bit further.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that. We just talked about it early on. So tonight, Brad, we were talking about David, David Coggins. David Coggins, the Navy SEAL, the crazy.
I used him.
Yes. Yeah. And so we talked about it, and we said, hey, just like you were saying, if you push, if your body kind of pushes itself, and then the mind follows. And obviously, I guess we can all agree that exercise and being healthy is really good for our mental wellness. How important in terms of, for most of those guys, men who are like, man, I'm stuck. I'm really stuck. I'm not too sure if exercise is going to help me. But if you could tell them, or just give them some advice, like, hey, and it works. It really works. It does.
Yeah. You got to start small. You got to be realistic as well. You really got to be realistic about what works for you. But you have to start. Like I said before, like even if it's just starting a little walk, and it's something that you start to build into into your daily routine, whether you just do it at nighttime for half an hour. But see, this is where it's different. This is where you do it no matter what. No matter what, you don't make any excuses. You say, too busy, man. Like, too busy tonight. I've got to get the kids dinner. We're running behind on time and stuff. I'll do an hour tomorrow rather than half an hour. No, it's that consistency. It's that, you set something for yourself, because for yourself as well, it's setting goals that you're not going to back down from. It's setting little things for yourself that there's no compromise. You have to get it done. So even if it's just a small walk, start with that. Or even if it's just going to the gym once a day or just 3 times a week, you set these little things, but you stick by them, and it's really important for yourself to stick by them, because if you don't stick by them, then you're lying to yourself. If you lie to yourself about one time, what else are you going to lie to yourself about? And then you start to set different standards for yourself. The standards that you walk past are the standards that you accept. Do you know what I mean by that? I mean that, like, if you accept racism here in this room right now, you're going to accept that. You don't sit up and say something about it. You're going to accept that. That's your new standard. The standards that you walk past are the standards that you accept. So if you accept yourself, if you accept yourself not doing what you told yourself you would do, then what's to stop you doing the same thing tomorrow, the day after that, the day after that? You're never going to get anywhere. You got to set little things for yourself. You got to be consistent for yourself. It's good, and it's a good mental exercise for yourself as well. And you're doing it because it's self-care as well. It doesn't have to be a walk. It can be like, if some people, everyone's different. It could be like art, it could be meditation. It could be anything, but you got to start somewhere, and you got to be accountable to yourself. You got to look at the man in the mirror, and you got to own up to him, and you got to be real with him. And if you've see, the good thing about being alive, being human, is if you make a mistake today, you wake up tomorrow, look at that same guy and go, okay, I stuffed up the diet plan yesterday. Today we can start again. And you can start again. Just because you failed once doesn't mean you're a failure. Just because you dropped the ball last week doesn't mean you're a failure. It means you get another chance to try again. All right. You learned from what happened. It was a mistake. Okay. Accept that. Let's move forward. New day, new goals. Let's go.
Man, oh.
Yeah. I feel like you're speaking to my soul.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. It just made me really reflect on, because obviously that's something that I've struggled with. I feel like my weight's like gone up and down. It's been a real seesaw thing. And since I moved back to Auckland, I think the last time I was healthy was back in Wellington. That was like the year my daughter was born, 2019. And since I've been up here, I've sort of bounced around to different places trying to find the place that feels right.
Yeah.
And then when it hasn't worked out that way, I'm just like, oh well, like there's nothing. I'll just resort to blaming my environment. I live in Otara, fast food's cheap, it's all around me. Oh well, like poor, like pity party almost. And there's something there that's like fairly recently, and this just adds on to it, but it's just dawned on me recently that it's all a mental thing. Like I really need to unpack some of these things and then just jump in somewhere and give myself some time to feel a sense of belonging. Or like recently it's been trying to find a hobby that I can fall in love with, that will just, my mind won't even think about the exercising part of it, but I'll just be having fun. And so that's sort of where I'm at in the journey now. I haven't found what that is yet, but it's still a bit of discovery for me. And how can I bring my family on that journey with me? Because in all the times I've been at my best, me and my family are on a different page, like different wavelengths. And so then there's more of them and less of me. So eventually we end up back there. And then I want to do something for myself. And then, it's a bit of a seesaw ride at the moment. So, it's just cool to hear your insight and sort of pick some things, reaffirm some things, but also just be inspired to... Yeah.
You are capable of anything. There's greatness inside you. There's greatness inside each and every one of us. I really believe that. You got to find the little things, the little triggers that might help you. For me, it's music. I can't work out if there's no music. It has to be a type of music. Sometimes it'll be slow jam. Sometimes it's like real gangster hip hop. Sometimes it's reggae. You got to find what works for you, what triggers you, what pushes you to that place. And then you got to look at whatever you're going to work out for, or whatever walk it is, and just go for it. But your mind will be taken care of by the music, by what's going on in your head. My wife is going to hate me talking about this right now, but and she knows this coming. But I used David Goggin once because I decided once to do like a 100K run. But using him in my head, listening to him when I was training and stuff for it, was a real key thing about letting your mind go into a place of pain and being able to stay there for hours on hours. Your body's going through like all this physical stuff. It's almost breaking down, but you got to stay in, and you got to stay in that place, right? But your mind, if you take your mind somewhere else, the body just follows. There's greatness inside you. I know this, man. I know this. When I was a Soledad in Otahu, and I felt like nothing was going my way. I was pushing a pram in the rain. No one on Princess Street. Princess Street at 8 o'clock in the morning is packed. There are 2 toddlers on the pram. It's pouring down. No one stops. No one opens their door. I feel like I'm alone. I feel like I'm a loser. But I know inside of me, like, Mike, you can do this, man. You can do this. Come on, bro. You got this. You deserve better. Whatever it is out there, I don't know what it is. There's something out there, but I'm going to get it. I start working out. I'd take the same thing into when I'd work out and push it further and further and further. The thing about your family as well is like, you got to find things that work with your family. You got to discuss with your family, it's got to be a family friendly thing. Then it's got to be a habit, but you can make it work. You can make it work. You can change what's in your fridge. You can change what you guys eat. Everything, man, is within your fingertips. Greatness is within you, is within each and every person. You know, once they realize that they can push themselves to limits that they mentally thought that they couldn't and go beyond that, then only then can they realize full potential. I don't think a lot of us have ever realized our full potential. A lot of us never will. But the ability is inside each person, no matter what you look like, no matter what your background. See, that's the great thing about it. No matter where you come from, you know. Francis Ngannou, you know that guy, right? Yeah, UFC champion of the world. You ever hear his story about walking across the desert, the Sahara Desert, I think it was, traveling all the way to France, being locked up how many times as an immigrant, you know, and all these bad things that happened to him just because he had that thing inside him, like, I want to be a champion, I want to be a champion, I want to be a champion. Never letting go of that dream. Greatness is inside. If he had never taken the risk that he would have taken, never would have got into the place. A lot of people, you know, a lot of humans, you know, they get to these great places. They never would have gotten there if they hadn't taken the first step and then made it consistent and kept going. We're blessed here in New Zealand, I think. We're blessed here. We have the opportunity, but it's up to each and every person to try and figure out for themselves, like, really what they want to achieve, where they want to go, and then start to work backwards from that, how to break down that goal. And then they start the first step tomorrow.
Man. I feel like saying amen. Amen. Amen, man. You need to put that on your resume. Preacher as well, bro. Well, my man, Mike, man. Bro, man, I just feel like, I just want to get into amen to that, bro. Amen to that. But I have seen Jay, Mike, and Jay, back in 2019 when Jay came back from Wellington, he was good. Yeah, man, you look good, man. He was in good form, and we trained together at F45 at that time. Yeah, Jay, right, yeah. The man was looking really good. He was really strong. But if anything, like you were saying, Mike, just you brought forth the word of consistency. Yeah, consistency, and being too comfortable. Because some people might be listening to this and viewing this and saying, man, but that's Mike's story. That's these guys are just super. There's something about them, and still feel like I just can't achieve that. What do you say to those kind of people? Because people are like who are very inconsistent and just feel like, oh, I'm just too complacent now. I don't know. I might as well just give up. How do you motivate individuals like that?
Because you owe it to yourself. Yeah. You owe it to yourself, man. Think about all the things that you buy yourself, you know, or that you buy your loved ones and stuff. Think about all the things that you work for. You work so hard, you know, the things that you can afford now and stuff. But you owe it to yourself. Your health is your wealth. You know, like you could be broke. You could be broke, but still your health is your wealth. If you have your health, man, if you look after yourself, your time on this planet is longer. You give yourself like another good 10, 15 years if you look after yourself. If you don't look after yourself, time goes faster. Or you end here in a much quicker way. That's for real. That's a real thing. And that's a real thing for our Pacific Island people, you know, across every spectrum. Because we live in a Western world now. The food is different. It's not the same food that our ancestors grew up on. You know, we're not going to the plantation every day. You're not using a whore every day where you're using your body, you know, physically every day. No, you're sitting behind a desk or you're driving a truck. You know, you're being immobile. Your body is being immobile. Your mind is highly active because your mind is in high performance, but your body is not. So you got to match the two up, and you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your families. You owe it to your families, man, to stay around, to hang around. Man, I know guys that have passed away because of this. I know guys that have passed away like mid 40s, early 50s. My father died at 41, dropped dead, heart attack. We lived in Tonga. It's a true story. 41. He started working out in the mornings. Didn't smoke, didn't drink. However, eating roast pig and corned beef and stuff, it's going to clog up your artery, you know. Our Pacific Island people use food as a reward. I get it. You know, use food as a reward. However, though, like when it comes to like a Western society and what we're doing every day, it clashes because, you know, we're not working out like how our ancestors normally used to work out. We're not going to the bush every day. So you have to combat that. That's why you have to move your body. It's so important. But once you move your body as well, it helps your mind, you know. But you definitely owe it to your families. You owe it to your families to stick around. You know, think about, I don't know if you ever think about, I think about it all the time. I think about what I'm going to leave my wife, you know, when I die, or what have I really left her, you know, like we recently got our life insurances done again, and it makes you really think about what am I really leaving behind. I can leave finances and stuff behind. Cool. That's great. But what have I really left behind, or what habits have I ingrained in my family, or what things that I impart to them that's going to help them on their journey? Because that's who I really care about. You know, so what have I really done? And the more you can stick around for your kids, the better. And take this from someone that lost his dad at 10 years old. The more you can stick around for your kids, the better. You know, they'll go through so many things, but if you can help a little bit, guide them through some of the things as they get older, you know, they will owe their lives to you. So you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to your families. And if you can't think of any better reason, use those reasons as, you know, if that's the reason why you get up in the morning and go to work, you know, for your family, then think about it the same way, that your health is your wealth, and you owe it to your families to stay on this planet.
Nice. Well said. Well said, Toko.
Beautiful.
So I'll see you tomorrow morning. I'll see you at 60 tomorrow morning.
But I'm too tired. I mentioned my knee. I'm like, oh man.
Man, you really just took me to a time when I used to think before, when I knew my daughter was on her way, this child we'd been waiting for ages.
Yeah.
And I thought at the time, oh man, like having a child, that would be the ultimate motivation. Like I'll do whatever it takes. And then for whatever reason, it didn't stick. And I thought, oh man, if a child's not enough to motivate me, like what the hell is going to motivate me then? And then I realized after some unpacking with therapy and things that I was sort of battling this, like I really wanted to give everything to this child, but it's such a deep self-loathing that there was just this conflict of I wanted to give everything, but at the same time I was thinking I wasn't worthy. And so just hearing your words of affirmation, it just made me reflect on that, and then thinking about where I am now, where I have two kids now, a 3-year-old and a almost 1-year-old. And everything that I'm pushing for now is for them, except the only area that I'm lacking in really is the physical area, and I haven't quite found a way to get through that. But hearing your words, I think it's just start. So
Start. It doesn't have to be anything amazing, you know. Small steps. It's always small steps, and you always build. You're always building on that. But yeah, just start. Also, just start small, man. Start small. Yeah.
Damn.
You're gonna thank yourself in 5 years from now. You will. You really will.
No, I appreciate that also. It's cool. Thank you.
And I think a lot of men watching this and listening to this, Mike, are going to really appreciate it, because I can guarantee you people may be going, man, yeah, I need that push. I need that kind of a nudge to kind of get up. I'm speaking for myself as well. I need that kind of nudge to get up. You know, I was supposed to get up this morning, and I was like, oh, I couldn't get up this morning. And like you're saying, it just sometimes, you know, you can actually push yourself. You can actually really push yourself. It's like kind of like this. When you really want something, you got to do everything in your power to get it. But you know, sometimes we could shortchange ourselves, and it is quite sad, because I remember, I like what you said, how many other people out there have all these goals and they never really achieve those goals, or they never really see the greatness that there was within them. And that's really sad. I really think to myself, man, that's really sad. And I'm just thinking, well, what if I'm one of those individuals? Like, man, and because I have all these things, I want to do all these things and try all these things, and to not complete it or not do them, it comes back to what you were saying early on. It's such a disservice, man.
Yeah, break them
disservice.
down, man. Go back and break them down to all the little different things that you want to achieve. Just backtrack them, break them down to what's a little step I can do to this one today? What's a little step I can do to this one? What email do I need to send about this one tomorrow? They're all little steps. But if you know what you really want, what your heart is calling for, then you just got to break it down and simplify it so that it's achievable for you.
Mm. So cool, man. And even like you were saying earlier on about your wife, giving flowers to your wife, it's finding the right support, the right people around you.
100%. Man, I can't emphasize that. Find the right queen or the right partner for you that is gonna support you through thick and thin, and that's always got your back, is invaluable. If you are lucky enough to have that, then there's two of you. There's two of you, man. That's cool. Sometimes when you got a problem, if you're really close with your partner or your wife and you can talk to her about that, then you're not alone. I think sometimes as men with mental health and struggling with it, and I know there's a big push for men to speak up more about it. And yes, it does come from helping to support brothers and each other through it as well. But honestly, man, it can also extend to your partners, to your homes as well, to your wives, your sisters. If you find that person that you really identify with or that you really click with, that you're really close to, and you can reveal these things to them, and they respect you enough to sit there and listen to you, then you've shared the problem, you've shared the load. And it's the beginning of you starting to unpack or starting to figure out how to solve it. Our people have a lot of trauma, a lot of things that have happened to a lot of our generation or possibly the previous generation as well. And trying to unpack that trauma is never going to be an easy process. But it starts with having that first conversation, that first time of being honest about it, of speaking up about it. Because just like in therapy, when you're speaking about something, you've already said it out loud. So you've heard it come out of your own mouth as well. Not only have you just shared it to probably a stranger, but you've heard yourself say it. And when you hear yourself say something, then it starts to really make it real. And you're talking about it. It's not inside your head anymore. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, my wife is my number one person. She's my best friend, man. She's my best friend. Yeah. And yeah. I owe so much to her. Yeah.
That's so cool because we share the same sentimental in terms of our wives as well, Jay.
Absolutely,
100%, man. Imagine it. I can imagine, it'd be quite detrimental for any man or for ourselves if we didn't get the support from our ladies. Mm. Imagine how we would be.
It would just make things harder. It would just make your probably your goal achieving harder. But also, having said that, some people all of a sudden realize that actually the person I'm with isn't really the person that's my number one fan. It does happen, and then you go through that process as well. But always it's about, I think number one is that you got to find out what's going to make you happy and what's going to make you love yourself. Because until you can fully be content and happy, you can't really give it out, or you can't really accept other people's love. If you don't love yourself, you got to start with yourself first. It all starts with yourself and your own trauma and what you've been through. And once you can heal yourself, or you have healed yourself, only then I think that you can be open to other people's love, because some people I don't think can be open to other people's love. They find it harder to accept other people's love, and it's a sad thing because you sometimes see people that are in relationships and one partner's the more giving one and the other one's probably the more staunch or more, and not necessarily male or female, it could be either, but there's always that one that's sort of standoffish, and you always wonder about that relationship and how that really works, and how hard it must be. Sometimes I think that about couples I come across and say, oh man, how hard it must be to live in that, how exhausting, how mentally exhausting to be in a relationship where it's toxic, where it's not fully, you're not both in it for the same reasons, and I feel lucky. I feel lucky that I'm at a place and in a relationship where I feel healthy and I feel complete and content. Yeah.
Bro, you're blessed, man. You're blessed. We are 100% definitely blessed to have these ladies in our lives. And I know, because obviously you and Nora kind of work together. That's cool. And you love that. You love doing that with your wife, eh?
What's
you and your wife, you actually work together, and you kind of just love doing these things together.
We try to. I mean, we try to. We don't often see eye to eye. But no, she's definitely my guy. You know, the person that I'll go to if I've got any like what do you call them? My words. You know, when you've got
like a dilemma, uncertainty,
when you have low self-esteem, or if there's something that I'm insecure about, I'll talk to her. I'll be like, "What do you think about this? You know, like, am I making the right call here, or what do you think from your perspective?" And sometimes it might not be the answer that I'm looking for, but it's just the outside perspective of what I need to make a decision on something. Yeah. The other thing as well is like, I won't make any decision by myself. I won't make any financial decision or anything. It's always like, I'll come back to you about this, because I'll talk to her like, what do you think about this? You know, what are the pros and cons? What do you think? Is this good for us? Is it not good for us? We make this decision together, then go forward. Because it's, you know, it's a relationship. It's not a me. Me. It's a relationship. It has to always be respectful of each other and also acknowledge each other and how we move forward as a couple.
Amen, man. Jay, any I don't know, any kind of final questions that you want to share?
Actually, there are a couple of questions. I'll start with the first one. What was the last heartfelt conversation you had with your son?
That's a good question.
This guy.
I think it was about last heartfelt conversation. My son I have 3 sons. I had a conversation with my oldest son. He loves rugby. He's a rugby player. He plays at St. Peter's, and they were fortunate enough to win their the competition, the under 14A. So he has high expectations of himself. I had a conversation with him, I think, when I was driving about toxic relationships. Hold on, was that him or was it another kid? There's too many. It might have been another kid. Might have been one of the girls. Probably the last conversation I would have had with my son would have been about talking about when you're feeling down about yourself. Yes, it was. Yeah, when you're feeling down about yourself, or when you got things that because you know when you're 14, your body's changing everything, and all of a sudden there's chaos. Hey, and the world is changing as well. But I had a conversation with him about whenever you have like dark thoughts or things that, because we all have them, you know, things that bother you or things that you feel inadequate about yourself, that I'm always here to talk about them. And I'm going to be honest with you about them as well. I'm tell it to you straight. I'm not going to like sugarcoat or anything, or like, you know, I'm just going to tell you exactly what I know and how I feel and how that has led me and how some of the decisions that I made and what paths they took me down. I'm going to give you the best I can, but I'm always here to talk to you about whenever you have those sort of thoughts. Yeah, he's a deep thinker. He's a deep thinker, that kid. Yeah.
Man, that's
cool.
Awesome.
Cool.
Honestly, props for just having that conversation. The reason I asked specifically about your son is because I know how important those conversations are to have between father and son, and the impact it can have when you don't have those conversations and having to find things out the hard way. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that. I think that's amazing. And the last question was, what comes to mind, or what can you think of when if you had to think of acting and compare it to, like, as an analogy for life, what life advice could you come up with from your experience acting?
Don't judge your life, you know, or don't, you know how I said before about judging characters before you play them? Don't judge yourself. Don't put limitations on yourself. Don't put limitations. So like actors put limitations on characters that they're about to play, you know, but the right way to do it is like to approach a character with an open mind. Approach your life with an open mind. Imagine if your life is limitless. Imagine if your potential is something beyond what your parents thought you were capable of, you know, what your community thought you were capable of. Imagine if that was your potential. Imagine if you're capable of those things. Imagine if you are the person that your community's been waiting for, but nobody knows it. Your parents don't know it, your church don't know it, but you are that person. And imagine if you knew that inside you. You know, you got to keep an open mind. Push for everything that you're capable of. I really mean that. Take life with two hands, you know, and take what's yours. I think too many times our Pacific Island people happily accept things, you know, and are grateful, you know, and I use the analogy of like a job. Like if I was to give some of us someone a job and pay them like minimum wage, oh, thank you so much, thank you, really appreciate it. We all know this, right? However, that job needs you more than you need that job. But what you should expect for yourself isn't minimum wage, man. You are worth so much more. Our Pacific Island people today, I don't think, really value, or that's a really bad generalization, you know. Some of our Pacific Island people, the self-value isn't as high as I would like it to be. I would like their self-value to be quite high. Expect high standards, expect high values, expect that the place that you work for really values you, because it does. You know what I mean? Companies do hire and hire people, you know, all the time. But if there's one thing that our Pacific Island people bring is they might be uncomfortable in the new role at first, but they start to learn it and they get comfortable in it. Then they start to bring their persona into it, which increases the value of that role. They start to bring themselves into it. They make that role theirs. They get comfortable in that role, right? The thing about it is that once the company loses that person, they haven't just lost that role. They've lost that whole thing that person has built into it. But you never knew that you weren't just worth that role. You're worth more. I don't know if this is making sense at all. I'm trying to talk about self-value and about self-worth, and that you should always expect a high standard for what you think, and you should be honest with yourself about what your worth is and how hard you work. Never expect just to say thank you for the lowest thing that's given to you. Take what's yours. Demand a higher pay. Demand a higher salary. If you know you're going to work to that potential, if you know you have that potential, if you know that you're going to achieve the things that the company wants of you to that amount of money, ask it. You're never going to know if you're not going to ask. I've done it a few times. It's a real thing. It's a real thing. Just because the color of your skin is brown, just because you're Pacific Island heritage, for whatever reason, but if you know your value in yourself and what you bring to something, then demand that value. Don't be shy about it. Don't think that, I should just be grateful or malo, saipe. No, don't. You live now in a Western world. You live in New Zealand. So you have to adapt to the way these people think. You gotta change the playing field. You gotta change, you know what I mean? Don't just be satisfied with like what's been put on your plate. You know, make the plate bigger. It's your plate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Man, Mike. Just and also just one more thing as well, Mike. You know, I think a lot of people talk about legacy, and you know, we always want to leave a legacy for our kids and for our families. But I want to kind of touch the legacy aspect, but for our men, and I'm just for all men, you know, especially more so the men of our nation. If you had to choose, pinpoint one thing, one hope for our men, whatever generation, and even the next generation, and I know we could say a lot of great things, but if you were able to pinpoint just the one thing, the one hope for the men of this nation, what would it be?
Be kind. Be kind, man. Be kind. The world is so much more limitless and open if you're kind. If you're kind to other people, if you're kind to your children, if you're kind to yourself, if you're kind, be kind. It's an easy, simple word, but if you think about what does it look like being kind to myself? What does that mean? Being kind to myself. Like if I really break that down, what is it? Am I spend more time with myself? What am I supposed to do? Go to therapy? Am I supposed to work out? Be kind to myself. What does that mean? What does that mean? What does it mean to be kind to your family? What does that mean? Or what behaviors do I have to change now towards my family to be kind to them? If you really think about it, be kind to like strangers in the community. Why would I do that? Because you're a community. You know, being kind to other people because you don't know what they're going through. It comes back to that thing, like people are on different journeys. But if you're kind to someone, I'm not saying all this is like a pro Jacinda speech, because I know Jacinda it was like one of her taglines during COVID, you know, be kind to each other. But I really mean it. Like, men, be kind. Be kind, man. Like, you can be, I don't know what the real saying is, but you can be like the fiercest warrior, right? But stuff it up again. The fiercest guys, if they're kind, it says so much about who they are as men, their strength as men, you know. I see like some guys that are really staunch guys, but the moment that you see that they're kind, it shows you a different side of them. It shows you their heart. It shows you that they value the other people in front of them. They value their communities. They value their children. They value their families. Being kind allows other people to like grow. If you're not kind to other people, then you yourself can't grow. You know, I don't know. That's what just came to mind.
Hey, man. Hey, I love it. That's so awesome. Also, oh man, we've been really blessed, DJ.
Absolutely,
Brad. We've been blessed.
Notes for
Yeah,
days.
man, bro.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
Man, no, we need to have a part 2. Bro, I feel like we just kind of touched a bit of the surface. There's so much more we haven't touched on in the real estate industry, the fencing, industry as well. So there's so much we can unwrap and unravel. But because of time's sake, and because I know you got your beautiful family back at home, Dogo, man, so much nuggets. We really appreciate what you've shared. And so, like every guest that comes on, we always give them a gift. So we always give them a caricature of themselves. And so, Dogo, this is for you, Dogo. For you, my Dogo.
Oh, what? Who drew this?
Me, I did, bro. Dogo, but hey, man,
This is cool, man.
So that's on behalf of the Mandate team, bro. We appreciate your time.
This is awesome.
Appreciate your time, man. Appreciate your words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom, bro. Man, we're really blessed, man. We're being really blessed. But Doko, is there anyone that you can think of that would be ideal to come on the podcast? Who on the top of your head? Who do you think? Could be anyone.
Gilbert Anoka. Do you know who that is? Gilbert Anoka is the mental skills coach for the All Blacks, Cook Islander. I heard him speak once. I was very, very fortunate to have a session with him in a room full of people, and I heard him speak for 3 or 4 hours. Mate, that guy has got some amazing nuggets of gold. His journey as well, of becoming the mental skills coach for the All Blacks is crazy. And talk about changing perspective and shifting things from negatives into positives. Yeah, Gilbert. There's a lot of guys around me I know as well. I think Coach Helper as well that I work with at the gym is an amazing man, a strong man of God, and has really high values as well. I feel very blessed that there's many men in my community that I think would be amazing here to hear what their thoughts are, what their how they feel about things, and what their teachings are. You know, and like I said before, I don't think like I'm anyone special. I'm definitely not, I don't classify myself as anyone special. I just classify myself as like a husband and father that's just trying to hustle each day for my family. But I'll do whatever it takes to make sure it happens.
And that's what makes you special, Doko. That's what makes you 100% special. I'm so glad. But yeah, Gilbert, if you're listening, bro, it'd be awesome. But otherwise, Doko, we always give our guests the last word of encouragement for our men. So take it away, Doko.
To encourage all the men out there?
Yeah, man.
Oh man, guys, your value in yourself is so important. The way you see yourselves is, you might think it's like a selfish thing. You might think it's, being indulgent, where you try to like do self-value or really look after yourself. But the truth is, like, it's not really done enough as it should be done. And so the more you can practice your self-value and really appreciating like who you are and how far you've come. You're here for a reason. Your parents came here for a reason, and you are blessed no matter where you are, no matter where you are in your journey of life. And I really hope that whoever's listening to this gets something out of it. really hopeful for for our community of men here in New Zealand. I know things aren't as easy as we'd always hope them, want them to be. Right at the moment, we're going through crazy time economically and stuff. I know this is a real estate agent. The property market's dipped and everything, and people are finding it tough to pay their mortgages and stuff. But all that stuff doesn't really matter if you compare it to like what's already inside your house and what you already have. You had on here Frank Hicks. I know Frank from a while ago, and Frank is a big, strong advocate for solo fathers, gaining access to the children. I got a lot of respect for that. And so for all the men, that aren't yet separated from their families and stuff, it's really understand what you've currently got in your hands at the moment and what you could lose. Because listening to Frank really made me understand, like, there's a whole court journey and stuff, that you could potentially go through. So be thankful for what you've got. Be thankful for where you're currently at, and just do a little bit each day to better yourself. Not asking for massive steps, just a little bit each day to better your journey to from where you were yesterday.
Malo toko. And so please like, subscribe, and please look forward to your well thought out comments. And please, once again, let's give him a hand. Michael Koloi. Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much. Hello. As usual, Jay.
Our mantras: refine, unlock,
and take charge.
Also, brothers, thank you.
Mandate.